If you have anterior pelvic tilt that's causing lower back pain and you want to get rid of it, then make sure to follow along with this brand new workout using both a lacrosse ball and a mini band. My name's Adam. I'm a sports massage therapist and a personal trainer, and I'm going to be showing you how to fix your anterior pelvic tilt using both self-massage and exercise techniques. Now, this does come from my lower back pain program, where I help you fix your lower back pain by improving your anterior pelvic tilt. If you want to learn more about that, I'll leave a link in the description below. Now, the way I'm going to be structuring this is I'm going to be first talking about the muscles we're going to be working on. I want to talk about why we're going to be working on these muscles and how they create anterior pelvic tilt. Then I'll show you specific techniques on how to either release or exercise these specific muscles. Now, if you're here just for the follow along portion, then skip to the number below to get the full-blown treatment. And you can even download the PDF to go along with this treatment with the link in the description below. So let's get started. The first thing we're doing is self-massaging the psoas and the iliacus muscle, both deep hip flexors in the body. Now, when I say deep, I mean deep because these muscles are located on the inside of the pelvis and right next to the spine, which means these muscles probably don't get worked on a lot, especially if you get massages frequently. Now, the way these muscles contribute to anterior pelvic tilt is they end up getting shortened and overactive throughout your lifetime, basically. So let me explain. Whenever you are in a sitting position, your psoas and iliacus is technically in a shortened position. And it has nothing to do with training them, it just has to do with the natural movement. You see, when a muscle is contracted, it will end up shortening. And a perfect example of this is the biceps. So with the biceps, when you think about contracting them, we think about the muscle getting bigger, as in a vertical way, basically. But it's not really doing that. What's happening is the tissues are overlapping each other, which creates this bulge in the middle. So what's technically happening is the muscle goes from a lengthened position to a shortened position whenever it is contracted. And this is basically what's happening to your psoas every time you are in a seated position. Now, a simple indicator that you have tight psoas and tight hip flexors basically is anytime you stand up, you might feel a stretch or tightness in the front hips, right where that pocket area is. And if that is the case, that might be a sign that you have tight hip flexors, and that could be the reason for your anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, so this is how you release your psoas and your iliacus. We're gonna break it up into two different pieces here. The first one is your psoas, which is more towards the spine, and the second one is your iliacus, which is more towards the pelvis. And we'll start with the iliacus because it's a little easier to find. What you want to do is lay on your back with your knees bent and your feet planted. Having your knees bent creates more slack in the stomach area, which allows you to get deeper in the muscle. And all I'm going to do here is start by finding that hip bone in the front, your ASIS, and all I'm going to do is look for it and fall off it towards the center, towards the middle of the body. You can think of it kind of like grabbing a bowl where you can put your fingers on the inside of it. That's kind of what you're doing here. You're trying to get your fingers on the inside of this pelvis, or the hip bone. Now you can use your fingers here. I'm going to relax my head to relax everything else. You can use your fingers to find that muscle and find the tenderness, find the tight spots, or you can use a lacrosse ball as well. Now, when I place this lacrosse ball in here, I'm going to place it right next to the iliacus, and then I'm going to press straight down. And I use the yoga block to add leverage here. If you don't have a yoga block, you can use something like a brick or a book, whatever you have. Basically something that's solid for you to press straight down into. And this is a nice little way to just start releasing your iliacus muscle. So there's a couple of things I can do here. I can do a couple techniques. I can just do static pressure. I can do micro movements by moving the ball back and forth. I can do a pin and stretch by sliding the foot all the way down, and I can even rotate the leg to help strip it a little more. All these techniques we can do on the iliacus, we can also do on the psoas as well. So to hit the psoas, we have to find the belly button. I'm gonna go a couple inches off of it, and then I'm gonna pull that stomach away to give me a little room to place the ball. So basically you're just pulling the stomach away from the opposite direction on the side you're trying to release here. So I use that, I place the ball right by my fingers, and then that is my starting position. I take my yoga block and then I place it on top, and I gently begin to press straight down towards the floor. Now, it's probably very tender in there if you've never had it massaged, and that is okay, but if it's tender, then go to the point where you're still able to breathe, but it's probably a little painful. Meaning if you can't breathe, the muscle can't release. So make sure it's tender, but not too much, is what I'm trying to say here. So a couple of techniques again, what I can do is slide, I can rotate, I can do micro movements. And a cool little trick here to see if you're on the muscle, you can press straight down if it feels tender, but you're not sure, you can lift this leg. And if you feel it kind of get more intense underneath that ball or whatever you're using, then you know you're in the right area here. So these are your couple of ways for you to release your psoas. During the treatment, we'll go over this a little bit again, but we're basically just going to dive right into it following a timed sequence. So that's it for how to release this. Now I'm going to show you how to stretch out the psoas. So once you release that psoas in the iliacus, the next step is to actually stretch it out. If you recall, that muscle was shortened because of all the sitting. Well, by self-massaging, you're not necessarily helping stretch that muscle out, you're just helping it relax, you're helping the nervous system shut off so you have a chance to stretch it out. And that's why stretching is step number 2 for fixing your APT. Okay, so we're going to be doing a standing psoas stretch. And the way we're going to be getting started is you're going to get into a staggered stance. I will be stretching the left psoas here. Remember, it is a hip flexor, so when there's an angle in the hip here, the psoas is contracted. So in order to stretch it, we have to do the opposite, which is hip extension. Now, there's a couple of parts to this stretch that I'm going to be showing you that we will be doing in the full treatment. So the first part here is we're going to get into a staggered stance here. I'm going to put one foot forward, my other leg back, and then I'm just going to bend my front leg and let my hips drive straight down. And this will give me a decent stretch right in the front hip pocket. Okay, so that is part 1 here. If you need a wall or something to hold on to for your balance, please do so. But this is your first part of the stretch. Second part of the stretch is you're going to pivot off of your hip bone, right where that pocket area is, and you're going to try to extend up a little further in order to stretch that psoas a little more. So let me just show you those again. Level 1, we're going to step forward, drive the knee down. Notice my body's kind of straight here from the back of my leg all the way here, and I'm just driving my leg forward. Now I'm going to pivot off my hip. Keep your core a little tight so you're not pivoting off the lumbar spine. You're pivoting more on the hips here. And now you're going to get an even deeper stretch for your psoas. That's number 2. Level 3 here is we're going to extend the arm up in order to open up that psoas just a little more. Now, the thing here I see a lot is people just kind of reach up as high as they can. Don't think of it like that. Think of it like you're trying to lift the ribs away from the pelvis, which is the reason why you're lifting the arm up. So think of it like the ribs are pushing the arm up as opposed to the arm just reaching up. So we're level 1, I'm going to bend the knee, drive down. Level 2, I'm going to pivot off that hip. Level 3, I'm going to reach straight up as high as I can, and I'm trying to open up from the rib, not just trying to reach up as high as I can here. And these are your 3 different levels for your psoas stretch. Now we're going to be doing each of these stretches for 30 seconds on each side during the treatment. So that's it for this one. Now let's get into the final piece of the treatment. And the final way to help fix your APT in this little sequence here is to train the glutes. Because the hip flexors are always shortened and tight, your hip extensors, aka your glutes, they are always going to be weakened and lengthened. And you can see this very easily in an example of the biceps. So again, if my muscle here, my bicep is shortened and contracted as I contract the biceps here, what happens to the triceps? Well, they become lengthened and weakened out. They have to neurologically shut off in order for the bicep to contract. Well, what if I want to go the other way? What if I want to do something like a tricep extension or just extend the arm out? Then now the triceps will shorten up and activate while the biceps become lengthened and weak. And it is this relationship of turning on and turning off, turning on and turning off, that allows the body to move back and forth throughout space and time, if that makes any sense. But basically it just allows the body to move back and forth and not get stuck in one specific area or one specific movement. So this relationship of on and off is called reciprocal inhibition, and it's basically what's happening to the glutes and the psoas. Because the psoas, the hip flexors, are always shortened and tight, your glutes are always weakened and lengthened. And this is why we must release and stretch the psoas before you train the glutes. So now that everything is released and opened up, you can actually fire up the glutes correctly so you can anchor everything down and secure it the way it's supposed to. All right, so to fire up the glutes, I'm going to give you a 1-2 combo here for your exercises. The first one being a clamshell, you're going to need a mini band that's wrapped around the top of the knee. All right, from here, I'm just going to lay on my side with my knee stacked and my feet stacked. My head can be wherever, just somewhere in a comfortable position. And for clamshells, all you want to do is lift the knee up while keeping the feet together and then slowly bring it back down. The trick to firing up the glutes during the clamshell is to pull with the glutes as opposed to just trying to lift the knee up. You see, the biggest difference here is if you squeeze the glutes first, then you can think of it like squeezing the glutes in order to pull that knee up, as opposed to just lifting the knee up using all the other muscles. So when you do your clamshells, squeeze the butt to lift the knee and hold that squeeze all the way until you relax. And this will help you fire up those glutes just a little more. Now, once we finish up those reps, we're then going to go into a sideline extension with abduction. Now from here, I'm going to take my bottom knee and I'm going to bring it forward just a little bit. This is going to add tension to the exercise. So the farther up this is, the more tension there's going to be. Now my top leg, I'm going to straighten it and then kick it straight back, squeezing the butt. The farther back I can get this leg, the more engaged I'm going to get those glutes. Now be careful with the bend rolling up here, because from this position, this is my new starting position. And now from here, I'm just going to simply lift that leg up and back down. Again, if we do this multiple times, this bend may roll on me and may not. Kind of depends on just the bend here. But this right here is your sideline abduction. And we're going to be doing this exercise at the end of your treatment. Now, one more quick analogy just to make sure you really understand why we go through the sequence in order to fix your posture basically, is I'm going to be comparing this to improving or fixing a crooked tent. You see, when a tent becomes crooked, you have the pole on one side. Here we have basically the tent, right? And on the edges, you have your ropes. This side is much shorter because it's pulling to that side. which means this other side is longer, becomes lengthened out. So this is basically your psoas, which is shortened, and your glutes that is lengthened and weak. Now, if we wanted to improve and fix your posture here, we first have to get rid of all the trigger points and untie all the knots in this side, and then we stretch it out. And once we stretch it out, we then get a triangle that is standing straight up, and our rope is now, let me erase this one, is now at the same length. But now this side is kind of loosened, right? Because it was first stretched out, but now that everything's loosened or leveled up, that rope becomes loosened. Well, this is when now you exercise those glutes. Now that everything is back where it's supposed to be, you now exercise this muscle and create trigger knots, right? You kind of tie some knots in there basically by firing it up, which will help tighten down that muscle. And this is basically the same way you're going to be fixing your posture with this little sequence. Now coming up is the actual protocol where I'm going to walk you through everything with the right times and basically talking through everything so you can just follow along with me to help your anterior pelvic tilt. So if you want to get ready for that, grab your tools. Don't forget to grab the PDF, the links in the description, and let's get started. Okay, so the first muscle we're working on in this treatment protocol is the psoas. And we're going to be hitting the iliacus for 30 seconds, followed by the psoas for 1 minute. I got my timer, I got my ball, and my yoga block. So let's get started. I already showed you how to find it or how to basically get in there. So we're just going to get started with this with 30 seconds. So here I'm just looking for the most tender spots. I already found a nice little tender one, and now I'm just going to perform some micro movements in this area just to try to release it. And again, if it's tender, that's perfectly fine. But if it's too tender, too painful to the point you can't breathe, then make sure you're back up a little bit. So I'm just going to keep going for some micro movements here. And that is it for my 30 seconds. We're going to now spend 1 minute on the psoas. So again, I showed you how to find it. Now we're going to release it. I'm going to press straight down, very tender in there. And I'm going to start with a pin and stretch. As I pin and stretch, I ease up on the pressure, bring it back in place, and then go right back down. I'm going to do another pin and stretch, my favorite technique here, and release. So again, I just have a nice little tender spot, so I'm going to try to finish this up with some micro movements, maybe some knee swings as well, just to try to open up that muscle a little more. So that's about 1 minute right there. Got a few seconds left. We're just going to change this up to the other side, starting with your iliacus. Same thing, 30 seconds here. What I did to one side, I'm going to do to the other, but this doesn't mean they're going to feel the same basically. It is normal for one side to be tighter than the other, and if that is you, especially with the psoas, you might have a lateral pelvic tilt. Just something to maybe Google and look up. Or something I'll do a video on later on. Let me know in the comment section. Alright, so that's 30 seconds. Now we're going to go for 1 minute on these psoas. So again, 1 minute right on that tender spot. Again, I'm pulling the stomach away and then pressing straight down. And my right side definitely feels tighter than my left. So I'm just going to start very gentle, some static pressure and some light micro movements. And then I can increase it a little bit by adding pressure or even a pin and stretch here. That's about 1 minute right there. And that's it for your psoas. We're now going to be stretching this muscle in the standing position. Okay, so now we're stretching that psoas. We're going to be doing each piece of the stretch, part 1, 2, and 3, for 30 seconds each. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with my left leg here. I got my trusty timer so I can see it. And I'm going to start by just driving the knee down and letting that sink in. And we're going to go for 30 seconds here. Now, what I want to do here is I can just come out of it for a little bit, bend my knee in to kind of ease into it as I'm getting used to the stretch, especially if you're not used to it. And I'm going to do this for the next 15 seconds here. If you're okay already, you can even hold that stretch already. So coming up, we're about 3 seconds away. Now we're going to go straight into level 2 here. I'm going to pivot on that hip. And again, I'm just going to hang out in this position in a static posture. One thing here, if you feel tightness, try not to hold your breath. Try to take big, deep breaths as you're in this position. I know it may be a little hard because you're supposed to keep your core tight a little bit, but try to take big, deep breaths and that will help release that muscle even more. So that's another 30 seconds here. And last stage, stage 3, we're going to reach up. We're allowing the ribs to come away from that pelvis here. A little extra I didn't mention earlier, we can do a little bit of a lateral tilt here. I'm pushing my hips out towards the camera and my hand towards the wall. And all of this is going to help stretch out that psoas just a little more. And keep holding the stretch for the last few seconds here. And good to go. So that's it for the left side. Let's hit the right side. Same thing, 30 seconds. Drive that hip straight down. And you can even come in and out of it if you need to. Again, if that hip feels tight. So I'm going to keep going. Just bend the knee, drive the hip straight down, and let it relax. If you want to hold the stretch, feel free to hold it as well. Okay, 30 seconds is up. We're going to go to stage 2 here. Pivot on that hip bone and hold that stretch. Again, try to keep the core tight, but also try to take big, deep breaths into that muscle to help it relax. Let's go. Okay, we're good to go. Stage 3 now, last one. Reach on up, use the ribs to push the arm up, try to get some separation in there. I know they technically do not attach to the ribs, the psoas, but it does attach to the spine, which is pretty close to the ribs, and is just helping opening it up even more. It's just a nice way to think about it, basically. All right, and that is it for your stretches. Now we're gonna get back to the ground with a mini band to finish up the circuit by training the glutes. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, and the last thing we're doing for this treatment is the exercises. I showed you how to do this. I showed you how to kind of think about it basically. So let's get into it. We're going to be doing this exercise for 30 seconds here. I'm going to do is pick the leg up, squeezing the butt in order to lift that knee. And I'm going to try to knock out as many reps as I can here. But I'm trying to also go at a nice controlled pace while still squeezing the glute in order to lift that knee up. So we have 10 seconds left here. Remember, from here we go right into the next exercise. Okay, bottom knee forward, top knee back. And from here we're gonna go for another 30 seconds. So I can feel it kind of rolling, so I'm just going to keep my hand here just to prevent it from rolling all the way up the leg. And again, try to think about squeezing the glutes. Pull back the leg using the butt here, as opposed to just trying to kick the leg back. Okay, that's 30 seconds. Let's change it up to the other side. Okay, same exact thing right here, another 30 seconds. Okay, let me speed up just a little bit, and now another 30 seconds for the second exercise here. Alright, good to go with those glute exercises. So that's it for this little treatment. Please let me know how it worked for you in the comment section below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to check out some more related videos, then check out the ones above here. Other than that, my name's Adam, helping you turn your pain into strength. I'll see you later.